My fellow seekers of truth, something unprecedented is happening. Something that validates every warning, every prediction, every terrifying possibility we explored in our previous investigation of the Buga Sphere. They're multiplying. Welcome back to the darkened crypt. I am Mr. Cornwell, and tonight we face a revelation so staggering, so globally significant, that it may mark the beginning of humanity's most critical chapter. What we're witnessing is no longer an isolated incident. It's a coordinated awakening. On June 5th, 2025, at exactly 7:30 p.m. Beijing time, another Buga Sphere materialized over the shallow waters of Shayuku Reservoir in China. Not similar to the Colombian sphere, identical. Not coincidentally similar, systematically identical. The witness described controlled flight patterns, intelligent maneuvering, deliberate hovering at varying altitudes. The sphere would vanish behind tree lines only to reappear moments later, repeating this behavior for over 10 minutes. But here's what sent shockwaves through the research community. When the witness later discovered footage of the original Buga Sphere event, the similarities weren't just remarkable, they were impossible to explain by conventional means. Same size, same metallic composition, same flight characteristics, same intelligent behavior patterns, same mysterious appearances and disappearances. We're not dealing with random phenomena, we're witnessing the activation of a global network, and it's happening everywhere. Colombia, Yumbo, Beijing. Reports are flooding in from researchers worldwide of nearly identical spherical objects appearing in diverse geographical locations, often within days or weeks of each other. The pattern is unmistakable, undeniable. What we initially believed was an isolated extraterrestrial surveillance device, the original Buga Sphere with its microscopic eyes and optical fiber networks, now appears to be part of something far more extensive, something that spans continents, something that suggests a level of coordination and planning that challenges every assumption about the nature of extraterrestrial contact. Tonight we explore the most frightening possibility that the Buga Spheres aren't random surveillance devices. They're activation beacons, network nodes, components in a vast extraterrestrial communication grid that is now coming online after centuries of dormancy. Remember the optical fibers we discovered in the original sphere? The microscopic eyes capable of real-time surveillance and data transmission? We theorized they were monitoring devices, watching us for distant alien civilizations. We were wrong, they weren't just watching, they were waiting. Waiting for what? For the right moment? For global conditions to align with some predetermined criteria, for humanity to reach a specific threshold of technological development, social evolution, or perhaps cosmic vulnerability. Consider the timing. The original Buga Sphere revealed its secrets in 2024, at a moment of unprecedented global upheaval. Climate change accelerating beyond scientific projections, technological advancement reaching artificial intelligence breakthroughs, social and political systems worldwide facing existential challenges. And now in 2025, as these pressures intensify, the spheres begin appearing globally. Not randomly, not coincidentally, systematically. The Beijing sighting on June 5th represents more than another mysterious UFO encounter. It represents confirmation that we are witnessing the execution of a plan conceived by intelligences that have been monitoring human development for millennia and have now determined that the time for the next phase has arrived. But what is that next phase? What happens when a dormant extraterrestrial surveillance network suddenly activates across the globe? What are these spheres preparing for? The answers may be more terrifying than we dare imagine. Each sphere, with its thousands of microscopic eyes and fiber optic communication systems, represents a node in what can only be described as an alien internet. A real-time data network capable of coordinating activities across vast distances with precision we can barely comprehend.
And it was found that after using the magnet, as if the sphere had been deconfigured or as if its fields had been altered, when the hardness was measured again, now it had dropped and it was very variable, to 70, to 80, to 60, dropped to 40, dropped to 30, rose again to 60, 70. It was absolutely unstable, the measurement, as if it were an aluminum, well, practically very soft, that it could be bent with hands to an aluminum, very hard. Then the temperature was also measured. I saw it, I had it in my hands and pointed it at the spot. And there the temperature ranged from 32 degrees up to 24 degrees, which was the temperature of the room ambient. I mean, and you could see it. And no, I think I have it recorded there. As you can see, the temperature is not stable. Then something happened, something else happened. They tried to scan the sphere. It was attempted up to 10 times, as Fernando, who was there directly, will certify. And on 10 occasions, the sphere, they say, it doesn't allow itself, it doesn't allow itself. At 70 or 80% of the scan, it was interrupted, the machine would go crazy. And they had to start over. They moved it from one place to another. They were there for hours. I said to them, well, what's happening? No, it's that we can't. It won't let us. They say it's like it was angry. But in reality, what I could conclude, which is something that needs to be certified, is that the sphere affects the magnetic fields around it, and also the equipment that we intend to use to be able to perform the measurements. That is, it cannot be done, and the measurements in that sense are not precise because the sphere has fields.
The Beijing witness described the sphere's behavior as intelligent maneuvering, not random flight patterns, not weather balloon drifting, not conventional aircraft navigation. Intelligent behavior, decision-making, problem-solving. The sphere was actively exploring its environment, testing responses, gathering specific data. But gathering data for what? What could require such immediate, coordinated global surveillance? What event could be so significant that advanced extraterrestrial civilizations would activate dormant monitoring stations worldwide? I believe we're witnessing preparation for contact, not the gentle, peaceful contact of science fiction, not the gradual disclosure process that governments have been hinting at for decades. We're witnessing preparation for something far more immediate, far more comprehensive, and far more transformative than humanity has ever experienced. Think about it logically. Why activate a global surveillance network now? Why reveal previously hidden monitoring technology? Why allow themselves to be observed and recorded by human witnesses? Because the time for hidden observation has ended. Because whatever is coming next requires real-time coordination and immediate data gathering. Because the extraterrestrial intelligences behind these spheres need to know exactly what they're dealing with when they make their next move. The timing of these activations may be linked to cosmic events we're only beginning to understand. Solar activity has been intensifying. Magnetic field fluctuations are affecting global communications. Astronomical observations suggest unusual energy signatures from nearby star systems. Could it be that the sphere network is responding to signals from its home civilization? Could these activations be the result of commands transmitted across interstellar distances, finally reaching Earth after years or decades of travel through space? The Beijing sphere's behavior patterns provide crucial clues. The witness described it hovering at varying altitudes, systematically exploring different atmospheric levels. This suggests environmental monitoring, testing air composition, radiation levels, electromagnetic fields. Why would extraterrestrial surveillance devices suddenly need comprehensive environmental data? What could require such immediate atmospheric analysis? Unless they're preparing for arrival. Unless the spheres aren't just monitoring stations. Unless they're advanced scouts, gathering final environmental data before the arrival of something much larger. Look at the distribution pattern. Colombia in South America, Beijing in Asia, other reports emerging from strategic locations worldwide. These aren't random sightings, they're a coordinated deployment designed to provide comprehensive global coverage. If each sphere can transmit real-time data to distant star systems, then the extraterrestrial civilizations monitoring Earth now have unprecedented insight into our current global condition. They know our atmospheric composition, our electromagnetic signatures, our technological capabilities, our military readiness. They know everything they need to know to make their next move. But there's another possibility, one that's even more disturbing. What if the sphere activations aren't preparation for contact? What if they're preparation for intervention, global climate crisis accelerating beyond control, nuclear tensions rising worldwide, artificial intelligence development reaching potentially dangerous thresholds, social and economic systems approaching collapse? What if the extraterrestrial civilizations that have been monitoring us for millennia have determined that humanity is approaching a critical failure point? What if the sphere network is activating because our watchers have decided that direct intervention is necessary to prevent our self-destruction? The Beijing sphere's deliberate, systematic behavior suggests intelligence gathering for a specific purpose, not casual observation, not scientific curiosity. Mission-oriented data collection and missions by definition have objectives. When we return, we'll examine the most disturbing evidence yet. Communications intercepts that suggest the spheres aren't just monitoring us, they're communicating with each other. And we'll explore what this global network activation might mean for humanity's immediate future. The truth is more urgent than ever. Welcome back to this emergency episode of The Darkened Crypt. Before the break, we explored the terrifying possibility that the global appearance of Buga Spheres represents the activation of an extraterrestrial communication network. But what we're about to discuss requires a moment of scientific honesty. Everything we're exploring tonight, while based on extraordinary evidence, remains a hypothesis, a working theory built upon the most compelling extraterrestrial data we've ever encountered. But let me be clear, the implications of this hypothesis, if proven correct, would fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of our place in the cosmos. Now, working within this theoretical framework, if we accept the preliminary data regarding the Buga Sphere's sophisticated technology, the optical fibers, the microscopic surveillance systems, the advanced metallurgy, then certain logical conclusions become almost unavoidable. The hypothesis that emerges suggests the spheres are talking to each other. Let me emphasize, this remains a hypothesis, but one supported by compelling preliminary data. If the optical fiber networks within these spheres are indeed functional, as Rios Lopez's microscopic analysis suggests, then coordinated communication across global distances becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Consider the engineering logic. Why embed sophisticated optical fiber networks capable of light-speed data transmission unless you intend to use them? Why position microscopic surveillance systems throughout a sphere's surface unless you need comprehensive environmental monitoring? Why construct objects from materials harder than aerospace alloys unless they're designed for long-term operation? Our hypothesis suggests that if multiple identical spheres exist globally, and the Beijing sighting strongly indicates they do, then these fiber optic networks would naturally create a communication grid spanning continents. The preliminary data supports this theoretical framework in ways that are both fascinating and deeply unsettling. Now let's examine the preliminary data more closely. If we hypothesize that the Beijing sphere's systematic hovering patterns represent data collection activities, environmental monitoring, atmospheric analysis, electromagnetic field mapping, then the timing becomes significant. The Beijing witness reported the sphere's behavior lasted over 10 minutes, with deliberate hovering at varying altitudes. From an engineering perspective, this suggests methodical data gathering according to predetermined protocols. If this hypothesis is correct, then identical spheres worldwide would be conducting simultaneous data collection, creating a real-time global environmental database. But here's where our hypothesis becomes truly extraordinary. The preliminary analysis of the original sphere's optical fiber networks suggests transmission capabilities that operate beyond our current understanding of communication technology. If these systems can transmit data at light speed across interstellar distances, then coordinating activities between Earth-based spheres would be trivial. Working within this hypothesis, each sphere represents more than just a monitoring station. They become nodes in what we might call an alien internet, a communication network capable of real-time coordination, data sharing, and synchronized activities across global distances. Now let's address the elephant in the room. This entire framework, this hypothesis of a coordinated extraterrestrial surveillance network, stands or falls on the accuracy of the preliminary data regarding the sphere's internal technology. If Rios Lopez's microscopic analysis is correct, if the optical fibers are real, if the surveillance systems are functional, then our hypothesis becomes not just plausible but almost inevitable. The engineering logic demands it. Think like an engineer for a moment. You're tasked with monitoring a developing civilization across an entire planet. What would you design? Multiple observation posts for comprehensive coverage, advanced communication systems for real-time coordination, durable materials for long-term operation, sophisticated surveillance technology for detailed data collection. The preliminary data suggests the Buga spheres possess all these characteristics. Our hypothesis simply follows the engineering logic to its natural conclusion. If such technology exists, it would be used exactly as we're observing. But let me be absolutely clear. We're dealing with preliminary data, extraordinary claims, and a hypothesis that challenges conventional understanding. The scientific method demands skepticism, verification, and reproducible results. However, when we examine the preliminary data objectively, certain patterns emerge that support our hypothesis in remarkable ways. The Beijing sphere's behavior, systematic altitude changes, deliberate hovering patterns, intelligent maneuvering, mirrors exactly what we would expect from a sophisticated monitoring device following predetermined protocols. The timing correlation is particularly compelling. The original Colombian sphere reveals its advanced technology in 2024. Identical spheres begin appearing globally in 2025. This progression suggests either a pre-programmed activation sequence or response to specific trigger conditions. Both scenarios consistent with our hypothesis of coordinated extraterrestrial surveillance. Let's examine the engineering implications more deeply. If we accept the preliminary data regarding the sphere's internal technology, then certain capabilities become mathematically inevitable. Optical fiber networks of the sophistication described by Rios Lopez would naturally enable instantaneous communication between nodes. Microscopic surveillance systems of the reported complexity would generate massive data streams requiring real-time processing and transmission. Our hypothesis suggests that what we're witnessing isn't random UFO activity, but the systematic activation of a pre-existing infrastructure. The spheres aren't arriving from space, they're awakening from dormancy. They're not exploring our world, they're implementing predetermined monitoring protocols. This is where our hypothesis becomes both fascinating and terrifying. If the preliminary data proves accurate, if these spheres possess the technological capabilities described, then the coordination we're observing suggests intelligence. Not artificial intelligence as we understand it, but genuine extraterrestrial intelligence operating according to plans conceived across interstellar distances. The timing of the global activations may correlate with cosmic events invisible to casual observation. Our hypothesis suggests the spheres aren't operating on Earth-based schedules, but responding to signals or conditions determined by their creator's cosmic perspective. Recent independent astronomical observations have noted unusual energy signatures from star systems previously associated with potential extraterrestrial intelligence. While we cannot definitively connect these observations to the sphere phenomenon, our hypothesis framework suggests they may be related, perhaps representing the command infrastructure coordinating global sphere activities. But let me emphasize again, we're operating within a theoretical framework based on preliminary data. However, if this hypothesis proves correct, then we're witnessing something unprecedented in recorded human history. The active coordination of extraterrestrial technology on a global scale, operating according to plans that may have been in development for centuries or millennia. The Beijing sphere's appearance on June 5th wasn't random. That date corresponds to specific astronomical alignments visible from star systems in the Andromeda constellation. The same systems referenced in recent crop circle formations. The same systems that ancient texts describe as the home of beings who watch over human development. Could it be that the sphere activation is timed to coincide with optimal communication windows between Earth and Andromeda? Could the extraterrestrial civilizations behind this network be coordinating their activities based on astronomical phenomena that occur only at specific intervals? If so, then the current activation represents a rare opportunity, a moment when communication across galactic distances becomes possible, when orders can be transmitted and received, when the next phase of whatever plan governs human observation can be implemented. Let's examine our hypothesis from multiple angles. From an engineering perspective, the described technology suggests capabilities that exceed our current understanding by orders of magnitude. From a strategic perspective, the global deployment pattern indicates planning and coordination on a scale that spans continents. From a temporal perspective, the activation timeline suggests either predetermined scheduling or response to specific triggering conditions. All of these perspectives converge on the same hypothesis. We're observing the systematic implementation of an extraterrestrial monitoring protocol that has been in development far longer than human civilization has existed. But here's what makes this hypothesis both credible and terrifying. The engineering logic is flawless. If you possessed the technology described in the preliminary data, if you wanted to monitor a developing planetary civilization, if you needed real-time coordination across global distances, this is exactly the system you would design and deploy. The Beijing Sphere's systematic environmental monitoring, its deliberate altitude variations, its intelligent maneuvering patterns, all consistent with a sophisticated data-gathering protocol. The timing of its appearance correlated with similar activations worldwide, consistent with coordinated network activation. Our hypothesis suggests we're not just being watched anymore. We're being systematically analyzed, our global conditions assessed, our technological and social development evaluated according to criteria we don't understand. Our hypothesis gains additional support when we examine historical patterns. Throughout recorded history, mysterious spherical objects have been reported during periods of significant human transition. Ancient texts describe fiery spheres appearing before the fall of empires. Medieval chronicles record celestial orbs during plague outbreaks. Modern reports document sphere sightings during major wars and technological breakthroughs. Within our theoretical framework, these weren't separate phenomena, but manifestations of the same monitoring network activated during critical moments in human development to gather data and transmit reports to distant civilizations. The historical pattern suggests a surveillance system that has been operational for millennia, observing key transition points and reporting back to extraterrestrial intelligence. But our current situation appears unprecedented. The global coordination, the systematic activation, the sophisticated technology revelation all suggest we've reached a transition point more significant than any in recorded history. The hypothesis framework suggests the spheres aren't just monitoring anymore, they're preparing, gathering final environmental data, assessing current global conditions, building comprehensive databases of human technological and social development. If this hypothesis proves correct, then the Beijing Sphere's methodical data collection represents more than scientific curiosity. It represents preparation for decision-making by intelligences whose judgment may determine humanity's future relationship with whatever galactic community has been monitoring our development. The question that haunts every serious researcher examining this hypothesis: what happens next? If our hypothesis is correct, if the preliminary data proves accurate, if these spheres indeed possess the technological sophistication described, then we're approaching what systems analysts would call a decision point, a moment when accumulated data reaches sufficient completeness to enable definitive action. The systematic nature of the current global monitoring suggests the extraterrestrial intelligence behind this network is gathering final data points before implementing whatever protocol governs our observation. The Beijing Sphere's methodical environmental analysis, if our hypothesis is correct, represents one component of a comprehensive planetary assessment. But let me be absolutely clear about the scientific limitations of our analysis. We're extrapolating from preliminary data, building theoretical frameworks around extraordinary claims, and hypothesizing about intelligences whose motivations and capabilities we can only guess at. However, the internal logic of our hypothesis remains compellingly consistent. If advanced extraterrestrial civilizations wanted to monitor human development, this is the system they would design. If they needed to coordinate activities across global distances, this is the network they would deploy. If they were preparing for direct intervention or contact, this is the data they would gather. Our hypothesis suggests the current activation phase operates on a specific timeline, with spheres gathering data according to predetermined protocols, building toward what systems engineers would recognize as a decision matrix completion event. If we accept the preliminary data regarding the sphere's internal technology, then each new global activation adds exponentially to the network's processing capability, its environmental monitoring scope, its coordination potential. We may be witnessing the assembly of an extraterrestrial information grid that rivals our own global internet in scope, but exceeds it in capability by orders of magnitude. Unlike our networks designed for human communication and commerce, this system appears optimized for comprehensive planetary assessment and real-time decision support. But I want to emphasize once more, this entire analysis exists within a theoretical framework. Our hypothesis, while internally consistent and supported by compelling preliminary data, remains unproven. We're dealing with extraordinary claims that require extraordinary evidence. Evidence that, while promising, requires further verification and independent analysis. However, if this hypothesis proves correct, then the Beijing sphere's appearance marks more than another UFO sighting. It represents confirmation that humanity has entered a phase of extraterrestrial contact, characterized not by gradual disclosure or peaceful first meetings, but by systematic preparation for something far more immediate and comprehensive than our species has ever experienced. When we return for our final segment, we'll examine the most crucial implications of our hypothesis and address the fundamental question. If we are indeed subjects in a cosmic experiment approaching its culmination phase, how should humanity respond? The theoretical framework we've constructed tonight, if accurate, suggests decisions of unprecedented importance lie immediately ahead. We return now to the darkened crypt for what may be the most important theoretical discussion in human history. Throughout tonight's investigation, we've constructed a hypothesis around the emergence of a global extraterrestrial surveillance network based on preliminary data that, if accurate, fundamentally challenges our understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. Let me state clearly at the outset, everything we've explored tonight remains within the realm of hypothesis, a working theory built upon extraordinary preliminary data and rigorous logical analysis. But the implications of this hypothesis, should it prove correct, demand serious consideration by anyone concerned with humanity's future. Our hypothesis suggests we are not random subjects in an alien zoo, but participants in a systematic evaluation process conducted by intelligences that have been monitoring human development according to criteria we can only begin to understand. The question we must now confront is not whether this hypothesis is comfortable or convenient, it's whether it's correct. The question is, what do we do with a hypothesis this profound? If we examine our theoretical framework objectively, certain conclusions become difficult to avoid. The preliminary data suggests technology beyond our current capabilities. The global coordination implies intelligence beyond our current understanding. The systematic timing suggests planning beyond our current temporal perspective. Our hypothesis predicts that we are subjects in a cosmic evaluation process, observed, analyzed and assessed according to criteria established by civilizations whose technological and intellectual development may exceed ours by millennia. If this framework proves accurate, then every decision we make, every path we choose, every demonstration of wisdom or foolishness contributes to an ongoing assessment whose outcome we cannot predict. The Beijing sphere's systematic environmental monitoring within our hypothesis represents one component of a comprehensive planetary evaluation. The global network activation suggests this assessment is approaching completion. The sophisticated technology deployment indicates the evaluators possess capabilities to implement whatever decisions emerge from their analysis. This raises the most critical question in human history. What are the criteria by which we're being judged? What standards must we meet to demonstrate our worthiness for continued independence? What failures might trigger direct intervention? The signal patterns detected between spheres suggest they're not just gathering data, they're making decisions, processing information according to criteria we don't understand, evaluating our species against standards we haven't been told about. This raises the most terrifying possibility of all. What if humanity fails their evaluation? What if the sphere network determines that we pose a threat to ourselves or to other civilizations? What if our watchers conclude that direct intervention is necessary? Thank you for another moment with me here inside the darkened crypt. I have been your host, Mr. Cornwell. Like, share and subscribe if you like our show. See you again for more revelations inside the darkened crypt.